this past Saturday night, AEW Full Gear happened, and Maxwell Jacob Friedman, the same punk kid that used to rip my headphones off at the Inspire shows, beats John Moxley with the help of William Regal to become the AEW World Champion. To help me break it all down, joining me on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina Hotline, he is the host of the Big Audio Nightmare. He also hosts the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast, The Wrestling News, and you hear him every weekdays on Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez. And I'll say it until the cows come home, he is the voice of reason for that very fine program. He is Mike Sempervive. Follow him on Twitter at Sempervive. Mike, it's good to talk to you again. Give me your overall grade, first of all, on Full Gear.
I think if we're doing it out of 10, a rock solid 8. I think that would be more than fair. As we're recording this, the show just got done about an hour ago, and it's amazing because it's Tuesday, but I believe the show just wrapped up. It was a long one again, but again, gave you a little bit of everything. I think people got what they wanted at the end with MJF. A lot of AEW fans got what they wanted with the Elite coming back and all of that, and I'm sure we're going to get into everything about it, but I thought another good effort for them on pay-per-view, and much like WWE, I think once you get a lot of the nonsense out of the way, whether it's bad finishes or bad storylines, or in AEW's case, so much nonsense that goes on behind the scenes that's got nothing to do with what happens in the ring. These athletes and these wrestlers are so good that when they are just left up to their own devices in the ring to do what they're going to do, maybe you don't like the finish because of where they're going to go, or maybe you don't like this or that. But as far as the action goes, I thought it was, again, a hell of a night for them, the way it usually is on big stages for all of these people. So there were some pros, there were some cons, but I thought for the most part, there were some, it was some good stuff going forward at a time where finally this is now the first pay-per-view, and I know, Tony, there's no ROH pay-per-views and New Japan pay-per-views in the AEW universe, so we'll say it. Out of the last 3 AEW pay-per-views, finally we're talking about what's happening in the ring after a pay-per-view, as opposed to MJF. Did he leave Nashville? Where is he? Who knows what's going on there, or what's happening at the press conference with fisticuffs and all that stuff. So it's nice to come out of one of these things where we're actually looking forward to what's going to happen in the ring coming up.
You're right. You're absolutely right. No brawl out. No missing MJF. It's crazy.
Boy, I tell you what, though, as far as the pettiness scale goes, I think it was a 12 out of 10. All things considered, when it came to Jungle Boy with his face messed up, eating a cookie at the press conference, or whether it came to the Wayward Sons there with their chance to see him Punk.
Right. Let's I tell you what, let's start with MJF, and I think it was pretty well known. I mean, most that follow everything, it was going to happen that MJF was going to win the world title. I think we all had our theories as to how it was going to happen. As crazy as it sounds, I don't know that many people. I heard a few, but there wasn't that many that thought it was going to be because of William Regal turning on Moxley. My question is, and I heard you and Brian talking about this the other day. You had MJF. Regal tells Moxley, go get the ref, because the ref was down. While guys turned back, he was back turned. Regal slides the knucks to MJF. Boom, 1, 2, 3. There you go. And the crowd went wild. Now, last time I checked, usually if you're going to use the brass knucks, that's usually the sign that you're going to be a heel. Yet the crowd cheered him like he was a conquering hero. I'm a little old school in thinking that could be a problem. What do you think?
I think it could be. But Brian Alvarez is one of those guys, and there were people like this that was heavy into you've got to turn this guy babyface. Listen to the crowd, listen to the crowd, listen to the crowd. I don't look at it that way. I look at MJF right now as 85 Ric Flair.
Mhm.
If you have a babyface that can stand up to MJF and deserves to be in the ring with him, odds are they're going to be cheering for. They may cheer for both of them, but they're going to be cheering the babyface because MJF can get himself booed. He can be the heel. If he's facing a devious faction, he can play a little more of the babyface role if that's what he needs to do to rally up the crowd. If he's going in there the same way he made the save with W. Morrissey and against the Firm and Ethan Page. I don't like the idea of turning a guy who's so great as a heel to be a baby face just because the fans are cheering him. Because I think in this case, it's like The Rock. They're going to cheer him regardless. If he's a heel, if he's a baby face, they're going to cheer him. It's like Britt Baker. And I think with Baker, it's more important to flip her onto the baby face side of the ledger and just be done with it. But with MJF, I like the idea. And granted, there was a lot that got him to this point. As much as we can hammer the booking on this, I think they had a plan that had nothing to do with ultimately how this thing ended up with. It was going to be CM Punk and MJF. He got hurt. There was, I think, a lot of moving parts here ever since MJF left and Punk got hurt the first time. There was a lot there. I think that ended up changing. But now that you're here and you've turned Regal on the Blackpool Combat Club, but you still got Stokely Hathaway over here and this group, I like the idea of now the Devils are alone on their island and we are going to be the top of this food chain like Ric Flair was. And again, if I face you, John Moxley, I'm expecting it to be 50-50, or I'm going to play the heel into this and we're going to do this. Whereas if I face Ethan Page, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this. I like that idea. And he's an old school pro wrestling fan. And I think it would be a great challenge for him to do that. And I think that's something he's able to pull off, certainly with William Regal at his side. So this drive to he's got to be a babyface or he's got to be a heel, I don't think where they're at right now, I don't think it matters. And I think if you made him a full-fledged babyface, frankly, it would come off way too disingenuous for a guy that, I just don't think it works. He can't be the babyface hero. He's never going to kiss babies or do any of that stuff. So why even do that? He's the shade of gray. To me, when they talk about shades of gray in wrestling, like he is the ultimate shade of gray because he's the only one, frankly, right now, in my opinion, that can do and is at the level of doing what a Flair could do in that same sort of touring champion situation. Again, granted, two different eras, but I think everybody out there kind of feels what I'm saying with this. At least I would hope that they do.
Right. Well, and I can see where, depending on whoever his next challenger is, be it Ethan Page, Ricky Starks, Mox when he comes back from hopefully a well-deserved vacation that he was supposed to take after All Out. I don't know how good the fishing is right now, but hey, they can book that opponent to react, in a way with MJF to where they can get at least something along the lines of a crowd reaction that they want. I do say, and you're right. If it's Ethan Page, that's going to be really easy to book. That's fantastic because I think Ethan Page he's enough of a heel to where, it won't matter what MJF does. He's going to get cheered. Ethan Page is going to get booed like he's supposed to, and there you go. So,
and with Ricky, because I was thinking Ricky could win the thing anyway. The way it was kind of going with Page and MJF, and I don't know what they're going to do, but like MJF and Ricky to start, Ricky somehow overcoming everybody in the Firm, winning that match. You go with a feud where MJF still, it's like Flair. You're looking over your corner for the Russians. You're looking over your corner for on this side for Dusty, you're looking over this shoulder over here because Buddy Landell, who's a heel, wants a piece of you. But then still, Terry Taylor wants whatever it's going to be. And I think you can do that. And I also think it leads to, if you do it right, there's so many little inner things that can weave in and out of this, because I don't expect anybody to beat MJF right now. Now he's won the title, but like, okay, Ricky gets screwed out of the match because Ethan Page thought he screwed there. And to me, you can move those pieces around, and if you do it correctly, everybody's kind of hovering here in the mix, and they all want this guy. And I like that idea, and I like the thought of when you have a champion, he faces everybody. If it's Hangman Page, then if it happens to be John Moxley's that next guy, you do that match. And there's a little bit of a different dynamic, because at the end of the day, what should mean the most? What should everybody want? They should want that world title. They should want the money that comes along, all of the stuff that, the world title is supposed to mean, as special as it's supposed to be. You see guys in boxing, wrestling, MMA, to any sport, K1 kickboxing, you have friends, you have partners, training partners, people but you're going to fight because that's what you're doing. You got the belt. That's how this thing works. We're going to go at it. So I think this would be a great time to really usher that in. And MJF, to me, is the best guy to do it with. That's why I was so anti the idea of he's got to be a pure baby face. No, he does not. And I just don't think it would be good for him anyway.
Yeah, and thinking about it over the last couple days, I can see that now. It's again, there's got to be. I think they have to tailor whatever MJF does to the opponent. He can't, it doesn't have to be an overt baby face, but at the same time, if you're against an Ethan Page, maybe tone down the heelish characteristics a little bit. I get that. How long do you think MJF holds the world title? Could we see it? Could we see a long run? Could we see a year? Could we see it go till Full Gear next year? Could it happen, or could it change hands? Say it. I don't think Revolution in March, but maybe Double or Nothing, maybe or maybe All Out next year.
Double or Nothing or All Out. I think as it stands right now, I think that would kind of be it. I don't know when Hangman Page is coming back. He, to me, right now would be, okay, what would be, the top feud for him? Well, it would be one of the other pillars that you're building the company around, the former world champion who was hurt and didn't get a chance to get a rematch back against the champion because the champion had to vacate the belt. Obviously, in storyline terms here, the champion had to vacate the belt and all that stuff. So whenever he comes back, you're going to have a couple of months of build to kind of go. So it just kind of depends there. To me, that's the one. So I as it stands right now, I think that's the one. And I think I wouldn't want to flip-flop that belt too much, especially when there's really no reason to, because there is nobody right now where you go, okay, who's going to be better than this? Well, nobody, not Bryan Danielson, not Kenny Omega, nobody. Nobody is better right now to hold on to that belt than MJF. So to me, you put it on him until it's time not to. And I think you go 6-9 months, you take it all the way around to September again. Which I will say this too, cosmically, if that were to happen and you're able to make it go for that long, Hangman Page getting the win back at the pay-per-view where he lost it, and with all that stuff, and God knows, again, they love their pettiness, they love their metaverse, they love their bringing in reality to things and dripping it back in there. I mean, that seems to be a cosmically a nice connection there if he goes and he happens to win it back from MJF at the All Out pay-per-view that maybe some people will remember for the wrestling.
Yeah, you may be right. Let's talk the other title change, the interim women's world title. Jamie Hayter gets the win it felt like that was a bit jumbled at the end. You know, you had Rebel, who, by the way, my commentary partner for the Rhodes Wrestling Academy.
I am so jealous, by the way. I
She,
continue
she's
to be.
she's a
I
lot
love
of fun.
her.
She's
The
a lot
best.
of fun. But she comes down and grabs the belt, and then here comes Britt Baker, and again, if it was almost a similar scenario to what MJF had in the sense that the crowd wanted Jamie Hayter as champion. The crowd got Jamie Hayter as champion. I'm not sure that what we talked about with MJF, I don't know if Jamie Hayter is strong enough to be able to hold up with whatever contender comes around. And oh, by the way, at least again, as we are talking right now, Thunder Rosa is still the world champion, even though she's out with injury. So if she comes back, that's gonna be interesting to see how that develops. But
In a lot of ways.
yeah, in a lot of ways, you're right. So you just mentioned about, they should just turn Britt Baker, babyface. Should that be the same for Jamie Hayter? And the other thing was, a lot of people were thinking they were going to have the split between Hayter and Baker. Apparently, that's not going to happen.
I got to be honest, in hindsight now, I'm glad they didn't pull the trigger on it, and I'll tell you why. Because to me, it's always been Britt Baker's a babyface. And I saw, in my mind, this is how I'm playing this now, because Britt took the pad off. Not only did she take the pad off, what is being forgotten about, and Stu, you're old school, so you remember this, back in the day when a guy got whipped into the ropes, his partner sometimes would jump over the ropes to create a shield so they didn't get knocked. And Britt Baker did that. Remember, Toni Storm reversed that. She went whipping in. Britt blocked her, and then Toni came and hit the exposed turnbuckle with her head and laid herself out. So Britt now has two things to, obviously you can go, well, okay, she can be a witch about this and go, when the breakup happens, I saved that, I got you that belt or whatever. But to me, no one as popular as Jamie Hayter is, Britt Baker's the babyface. And I think the best thing you could do if you're going to break them up, and I believe that they will, because I think they have too much chemistry to not feud, flat out, point blank, period. And Jamie Hayter can make Britt Baker better in the ring during that match. And Britt Baker can bring a lot of, again, Hayter's good on her own, but she's better as far as the personality and the flash and the charisma. It's really showcased more with Britt there. And I think if she takes Rebel with her, and Britt is there as the baby face, you wouldn't even have had that belt. Of course I would have had that belt. You're always just saying that. And it's like, Jamie really playing up being the heel. I think splitting now and them, doing that and having them feud, I think that's the way to go, almost regardless what happens with Rosa, because as it stands now, Rosa's not coming. It's probably going to be February is the last thing that I was, kind of hearing there. So it's like, they got a decision to make there anyway, so they can always reassimilate, Thunder back however they want to do it. But I think going forward, I would probably turn Jamie, keep it, but make sure that Britt Baker, and you don't even have to turn her. There's nothing you have to do other than send her out there and wrestle a bad guy. Yeah. Like, that's all you have to do. And Britt Baker's a babyface again, just a stream of bad guys, and Britt's the babyface.
You can have Hayter turn on Britt. That's
it. And that's what I think. That's where I think the money is, because people will not get tired of Hayter or then lose interest because she's not with Britt. They like her enough and they want to root for her, but they will be lustily booing her, whereas they just will not lustily boo Britt no matter what. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
Until I see it, I don't believe it. Right. Same thing with MJF. Right. So you almost have to throw some of it out, because it's like, hey, your mother's a hoe, and I just robbed your, wife and just smacked your kids and whatever. And it's like, yeah, they're gonna do that anyway. So it's almost a lost cause there.
You're right, and yeah, we gotta see what happens with Thunder Rosa. She's busy with Mission Pro Wrestling. They got a card in a few weeks in San Antonio, so
Stardom thing is going to be interesting again
yeah,
now with things opening up with New Japan, and again, I don't know with Strong how many women are going to come over, but like
that's true.
2023 is going to be really, really fascinating. We already got a shoe drop with Kenny Omega being announced to face Will Ospreay, so it's really going to be an interesting start to the year next year.
It really is. You're right. As crazy as 2022 was, yeah, 2023 should be a year to watch. That's for sure. Let's talk about the Wayward Sons. Kenny Omega, Young Bucks make their triumphant return. They faced Death Triangle for the trios titles. They lost the match, and then we hear, oh, it's going to be a best of 7, and that was the first match. So that felt a little is like, okay, why? But all right, whatever. Not to mention, I like the song "Carry On" by Kansas, so it was a cool entrance. We saw it on Being the Elite on Monday, where they talked about it's a healing process. They finally felt like they're back, so that's cool. And you just mentioned Kenny Omega will go to Tokyo. He's going to be at Wrestle Kingdom 17 to face Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Championship. I Is there a scenario that where the Young Bucks and Kenny don't get the trios titles at the end of this best of 7?
Yeah, there is, but the thing is, I think we're going to have to look at what the dynamic is between Pac and Penta and Phoenix, because you already had now, and there was again one of the drawbacks was you had babyface in conflict with themselves over whether they should do something or not. And if you consider MJF a babyface going into that thing, he was the third one, Keith Lee, and then obviously what took place with Phoenix and the hammer to Kenny Omega's head. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there, because Pack out of that and Bandito into that mix, I kind of like that, because it allows a tag team mix of anybody there. It allows Alex Abrahantes to cut the promos for Bandito. So I think at the end of this thing, it is going to be the Elite and Kenny Omega that come out of it. And I was surprised that they went with the 7-2. And I'm thinking at first, it's like, do I want to see this 7 times? And then I'm thinking, it doesn't really matter if I want to see it 7 times. People that love those guys and love those types of matches absolutely want to see it 7 times. And not only that, say you hate what those guys do, you hate that style of wrestling, and I know there's people like that out there, we hear from them all the time. Look at it this way: they're tied up with each other for every TV show. You can fast forward through it, you can not watch, you can watch something else while they're on, but they're together. So to me, this is like a win-win. Even if you hate them, they're working with each other. But
Right.
if you love it, man, you are guaranteed on TV craziness. It's just, how do you break the matches up? Do you put stipulations on them? Do you make them a little bit different somehow? So how they decide to change things up, one thing I know people would hate this: have a 5-minute match. Have a surprise where, somebody got late, a surprise, just something to make each match different, because it is hard for me to believe. I mean, has there ever been a best of 7 in pro wrestling that didn't go 7? Some of them go 8, so, 9, 10, because of double countouts and draws and all that stuff. So I think this is a really good idea, and I am actually all for it. I really, really am.
Yeah, I am too. I think it could be a lot of fun to watch those guys. Um, Saraya, the former Paige, makes her in-ring return against Britt Baker. it was a fine match for what it was, but obviously it was very emotional for Soraya. Um, so now that Soraya's gotten the win, you gotta imagine that sooner rather than later, she's going to get inserted into one of the title pictures, whether it's against Jamie Hayter or against Jade Cargill for the TBS title. But give me your thoughts on Soraya in her return to the ring.
I thought she looked really good for the lack of, I mean, if she didn't get cleared till October 31st, and granted, I'm sure she was doing some stuff, but like, I mean, you're down there. There is a real thing is ring rust. I mean, that is, and there's an absolute fact. And there are mental things going through her mind. Am I going to get hurt again? How am I going to look? I mean, the promos haven't been fantastic. How there, I'm sure she had, and you could tell when she went out there, you could tell at the press conference afterwards, she was a ball of emotions. And I thought Britt Baker, who is not, I mean, she has not been wrestling that long. She has not had that many matches because of the pandemic and everything. And look, she was not a natural. She wasn't Jack Briscoe. She wasn't Kurt Angle. She's got a long way to go. But her helping lead Saraya along the way, because she hasn't been in there in so long, I, I thought they did a zillion times better than I thought they were going to do. The only issue was I thought it was a little bit too long, but other than that, I thought yeoman's work was put in. The right person won, because you shouldn't bring her in. We've seen that with AEW too many times. Somebody new, a new face happens, and they lose right off the bat. I don't like that. So Saraya coming in, get the win. But one thing she has got to remain in this side of the title picture because I'm not putting her in that position with Jade. And it's no offense to Jade, except for Jade's had even less matches than Britt Baker. And to me, there's ways to work that belt, and you put Saraya in with the better workers. And that's just, to me, in my opinion, I'm not putting her in with Nyla Rose. I'm not putting her in with Layla Gray. I'm not putting her in with somebody with less experience. She's getting Serena Deeb. She's getting Rosa. She's getting Tony. To me, that's the direction you want to go. Now, my question is, will she be an island on her own, or is she going to find some help that she can rally around and have some people with her? Because her wrestling all the time, I don't think is the key. I think a lot of people just like her as a personality and will accept her as more of that and a little less of a wrestler. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how often she's going to work, because even by her own admission, I think, what did she said the doctor said, like one a month? So right there, again, it will limit you in some ways, but it also will force you to be creative, because if you are going to give her a title shot on X time, like, it'll be interesting to see how you're going to get there if she is going to have to stay limited with how much she works.
Well, and she can be that special attraction, kind of like what WWE does with Brock Lesnar or somebody like that, where once a month she gets in the ring, like you said, with a Tony Storm, Thunder Rosa, Serena Deeb, whoever. And we don't have to see a title shot. I would say summer 23 at the soonest. But let her get in. Just again, kind of knocking the ring rust off. A couple other things about Full Gear. Let's. You mentioned Jade Cargill, and I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'll be honest. I'm a little bored with the undefeated streak. I feel like it's time to put that belt on somebody else.
She needs peril. That's the thing, is she needs some danger. Whereas like Wardlow, I think they put him in danger too quick once he won the TNT title. Now he's in there with Mark Sterling, and now he's selling for this. And no, but Jade, I think there is danger that's needed because it's her. And I mean, granted, Layla Gray and Tasha Steeles Layla Gray and Kiera Hogan, because Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steeles, most beautiful tag team I've ever seen in my entire life. And they're great in her role as the baddies, but like the Nyla Rose feud was awful. I'm sorry. To me, it's all subjective. Nyla's great as a goof, but like with Marina Shafir and Vicky, there's another great case of like, who aren't they bad guys, but they're good guys, or like what is going on here? So like, I don't know exactly what the answer is for Jade. It's either lose the title and be involved in a feud in another mix, but they don't want to do that. And I don't know who the person is now. I don't know if they're even on the roster right now, unless it's Britt Baker, which I don't think it would be, because again, you got the hater stuff and all that stuff going on. Like, I don't know if the person to beat Tony Storm, to beat Jade Cargill is even there yet. You know what I mean? I don't know if they come along and get somebody else or somebody else comes in, but I don't know what the answer is, other than there's got to be some danger for her, but it's also got to be somebody that can work, that can do the work. Because again, it's not Jade's fault, but it's, you saw it in that match. Like, she can't, extended selling is not her thing yet, and it's just and there's where it's such a catch 22. So you look at it and say you got to feature her in a strong way, but she can't keep winning because it is boring. It's a rampage act, and I hate to say it, I don't want to say it's a dark act, but like, if it's going to fill the same time on Rampage doing the same sort of thing you've been doing, I'd rather see some other people get a shot and see this on darker elevation. And that's not how it should be. But that's kind of how, unfortunately, how I'm feeling right now too.
I agree. I agree. In the I would say middle aged and crazy, but hey, they're both kind of old. Sting and Darby Allin getting the win over Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Uh, I guess I don't know if I was looking for like the greatest hits from their feud in TNA, but it did what it was supposed to do. It was fine. But
do you ever think you're going to get a TNA chant? I mean, come on.
I know that was funny. But again, Sting doing the dive at I guess 63 now, and Jeff Jarrett looks, I dare say, probably looks better than what he did in his prime.
He looks incredible. We were talking about that in Big Audio Nightmare. We were just talking about, like, you look at him and you look at like 2001 Jeff. He looks the same. It's been 20 something years. He's been through a lot of hell in that time. He still looks great. He is incredible, and I think I liked Jeff Jarrett. I'm not a big fan of. I like Jay Lethal a lot. I like Jay Lethal, frankly, more than a lot of people do. A lot of people are bored by him, all that stuff. I like him. I always think he's got a spot on the card. I have not been enthralled with Sanjay Dutt and his character, but I understand because of what they're doing with Satnam Singh and wanting to grow that. And I mean, I kind of get it, but I haven't been a big fan of it. But Lethal and Jarrett together against Darby and Sting, like, that was perfect.
Yeah.
That was, to me, perfect. And I think we're going to get Jarrett and Sting down the line, and I'll be all over it. I will be all over it like a crazy man. And the only Sting, that dive where Satnam caught him, but he's going like over his shoulder, and it just, that terrified the hell out of me, because you're right near the guardrail and everything. There has got to be some sort of happy medium with that, because that was balls to put Satnam Singh in charge of catching 63-year-old Sting with spinal stenosis, and Darby Allin coming back off that ladder backwards to be caught, and his feet hit the ground. I mean, he came off of that and Satnam caught him, but his feet did hit the ground. It's not like he caught him in the air. So it's like, boy, let's not do that again. But I would be all, if you wanted to have a rematch of that match, I'd be all for it. I think that's Darby and Sting are a great use of each other, because I don't think Darby's not in the title picture. Some, you can argue of why he could be, but I just don't think he's got that. To me, what he's doing, that's what he does, and lighting up the crowd and doing the things that he does. He and Sting together are fabulous, and I think Jay Lethal, again, whatever happens with the Ring of Honor is going to happen, but I really thought that was a fun spectacle, and I'm one of those people. I have been in the tank for Jeff Jarrett since 1987. The more I learned about his life, the more I was there from day one with TNA. I just his relationship with Owen and with Owen's family. There is a lot. I've always liked Jeff Jarrett, and I've always fed off of other people not liking Jeff Jarrett because I think he is such a survivor. And I think, again, there's no lemon that you can give anybody in the Jarrett family that they can't turn around, make lemonade, and sell back to you.
I agree. I've had interactions with Jeff, and he's always been really good to me. And I like you. I always enjoyed him. I enjoyed him all the way back to when USWA took over World Class, and he came in and such. And same thing with Jay Lethal. I think Jay Lethal is one of the best wrestlers out there, and his run 5 years ago with the Ring of Honor World Title and TV title. I think
Oh man, Lethal and Briscoe against each
that was
other.
fantastic. That was fantastic. So, before we switch gears, you got Ring of Honor Final Battle coming up. Chris Jericho still the Ring of Honor World Champion. Who's his opponent at Final Battle in your mind?
Bryan Danielson. I still think Bryan Danielson. I would do that, and I would have Chris Jericho beat him, and then that's the end of Bryan Danielson's runs after the Ring of Honor title. You know what I mean? Now I don't think they're going to do that. That's something that I would do. I wonder if they're going to bring in a former champion in the same way that Tomohiro Ishii is being brought in, a former TV champion. Will it be Adam Cole? Again, I don't know how long Cole's going to be out for with the concussions and all that sort of stuff. I think that would be, I would have loved that idea if you could have pulled that off. But as it stands right now, I'll say Bryan Danielson. But again, I'm not sure, and I'm not. And they really have no. They don't seem to have a problem with calling up anybody and saying come back. I know they've used Cole Cabana, who's already on staff. They've used some other people that they've already had belts, but I don't know if that's the worst idea in the world. The other thing you could do is but to me, Jericho's not losing the belt. I mean, you could have him face Samoa Joe, but obviously Joe with the two belts, he's probably going to be facing somebody else. But I don't know. I'd have to really kind of take a look at the past ROH champions and kind of wonder about that. I'm not sure.
I've seen the name. I've seen Jay Briscoe's name floated. I've seen,
I love that.
like you mentioned, another former champion, like you mentioned, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly. He's former world champion.
He is, if his neck is there,
right. They've got a lot of options they can go.
They've done Dalton already. They've done Bandito. It's like you try to think to some of the more recent guys, or it's like, do they stretch back into time and get, I don't know. Fill in the name. Did Shingo hold a belt while he was, at times there? I mean, I don't know who you could do, but I'm sure somebody.
Go Christopher Daniels. He's former world champion as well.
And he's been active. And that's, with Daniels, Daniels, obviously he's got the office role, but it's like Kazarian. Kazarian's still wrestling right now. Yeah. It's just, you don't see him because it's not there. And Daniels that's actually a fabulous idea because the match would be fabulous. And I think you'd have enough on that show. Look, anybody that's going to order an ROH pay-per-view, they're going to be pretty hardcore for it anyway. And I think if you stack that card with some good matches on it, does right now in 2022, does Christopher Daniels look super bright up top? Maybe not for everybody, but if you have, 10 matches on that card that are like, boom, ready to go. You have Mercedes Martinez in there facing off against somebody really good, and you have these good matches. It doesn't really matter if you look at that match and you go, well, Jericho's going to get the win out of this anyway. Yeah. It's just really with Jericho, it's a matter of just how he's going to do it. So
you're right. Let's switch gears to WWE Survivor Series coming up this Saturday from the TD Garden in Boston. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on Peacock. As of right now, they only have 5 matches booked, which I would suspect maybe we get 1 or 2 more come Friday night on SmackDown. let's look at the men's War Games match. Bloodline, Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens. And you know, the reports are right now Kevin Owens is working through an injury. He looked pretty good Monday night on Raw. This feels like I mean, the bloodline dominates so much. And again, it's a little bit like what we were talking with Jade Cargill, in the sense that it gets a little like, okay, here we go again. So it feels like maybe this will be where the bloodline takes an L, and maybe this fosters the eventual split with Sami Zayn.
I would start planting those seeds now. They're in Montreal in February. To me, the match to me at WrestleMania is Usos, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, which is not, any grand thought coming from me. But you got a lot of time to get there. And you got Elimination Chamber in February in Montreal. Do you right now continue to have Kevin and Sami poke at each other and not do, because again, like you mentioned, the bloodline can take a loss here, but when are you going to start really pulling the trigger on Sami and Kevin? And I don't know if it's right now or not, but you can start planting the seeds right now. I think Kevin Owens going through Solo Sikoa, like if he ends up being the guy to get the win, which would then get him a shot at this point at Royal Rumble against. That's what I think it is. I think Kevin Owens ultimately being one of the survivors here. He gets the win. He gets the match against Roman in January. And then from there, Sami's got a real decision to make, because maybe that's how he gets screwed out of it. And damn it, Sami, you could have stopped that. And, if you're not going to be on my side, I've tried to be nice about this. I've gone after Jay and Jimmy because, again, you can have him do that. But Sami, we'll just take it back to like when every other time we fought. And I said I was never going to fight you again, but to hell with it. We're going to do this in our hometown. And this is what we're going to do. And you have that moment. And then you have somebody come in from the bloodline side to try to help Sami. And it's like George Steele, because I'm old, folks. Watch this one. Like George Steele running out there with Pedro Morales and Bruno Sammartino in Shea Stadium, and they look at each other and go, "What are we doing?" And they embrace, and it's like this is it. And to me, if you can let it wait, and I think that they can, because they're also great with the talking, start planting the seeds now, but make sure that this, to me, Kevin can go through a lot of what's going on there and have bump heads with Solo and Jay and Jimmy and anybody else along the way to extend this thing out to get to that. But that's kind of how I'm leaning right now. It's just, I wonder who else is going to survive. Drew was always kept really strong, and it's like, is Drew somehow one of the final survivors, or does it come down to like a 5-on-1? Because I firmly believe that Kevin Owens is going to get the victory here. It's just how many people are going to be left, remaining when that happens.
Right. Yeah. And let's not forget, this is a War Games match. So it's, again, old school, the match beyond, where it ends pinfall submission once you
That's
get
right. That's
so
right.
It's not a matter of surviving.
That's right.
It's just whoever.
I forgot about that. See, it screwed me up because it used to be. And by the way, it's War Games until all 10 men are in the ring. Then it's the match beyond. Okay,
correct.
God, Alvarez drives me nuts with that. But yeah, I forgot about that, and that's interesting too, because it's like, do you make Sami submit? And then Sami, then they're really on Sami about submitting. Is it Kevin Owens and Sami throws, again, there are ways to then play that thing. Yeah. And I forgot about the War Games factor, part of that thing, but yeah, that's very, very interesting there of who says I give. Very interesting.
Absolutely. On the women's side, you got Damage Control, you got Nikki Cross and Rhea Ripley taking on Bianca Belair, Asuka, Alexa Bliss, Mia Yim, and we will find out on SmackDown. Apparently, all the talk around the campfire is Becky Lynch. But if it's not Becky Lynch, then who? And it kind of takes me to what you asked today. Where's Charlotte Flair?
Who else, if it's not Sasha, and it's not going to be Sasha,
No.
it's Becky. And Becky was laid out. She was hurt. She was put out. She got hurt in the match, but the storyline is Damage Control put her out. Bayley came back. That's it. Makes too much sense for her to come back. So if it's not her, it can't be Carmella. It can't be Lacey Evans version 17.5.
We don't know. We don't know if Lacey Evans going to be babyface or heel. And
that's right.
Do they?
And that's, she was wiping the makeup off, and she's tearing off the a couple of weeks ago they showed the interview with her after SmackDown about looking at the jacket, and I'm just going to go back to being me. And it's like, what does that mean? We've seen a lot of versions of you, lady. So, at the end of the day, if it's not Becky, it better be Charlotte, because whoever else it is going to get booed out of the building, and it's just going to be. It'll be too much of a wet fart if it happens and it's anybody else. And that's no offense to Natalia or whoever would be put in that position. But you know what? Shame on WWE, because you're really putting them in a position there, by doing that. So to me, I know people don't want to see Ronda and Charlotte, and Brian was right. I don't want to see that really match again too. But as far as Charlotte coming back, if it's not at the Royal Rumble, like, it's going to be before that, because somebody's got to be paired up with Rousey that can actually work with her and make it, intriguing and keep people involved and in the mix with it, because everybody else is over on Raw all tied up in the mix, and she doesn't fit over there. And frankly, Becky does. So at some point, Charlotte's got to be back, and it's going to be real hard to wait for the Rumble, but maybe that's what they're waiting for.
Yeah, I think you're right. Triple threat match. Seth Rollins defends the United States Championship against Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley. This feels like Seth's going to survive by hook or by crook. Could be, could be some sort of, Lashley makes a power move. Seth shoves Lashley out of the way, pins Theory. Even though they've been doing this whole, Theory's just now angry and winning and all the time. But I know it's WWE, but you don't take the title off of Seth just yet, do you?
If you do, it's one of those things. If you do, you better have plans for everybody. Like, because I can't see Theory getting pinned. I can see him winning the match, but right now, I can't see him getting pinned. Bobby Lashley, I can see getting pinned, but how and why does that happen? And then what do you got next for Bobby? Because people want to cheer Bobby. At the very least, they want to see him in the mix with somebody, preferably bumping and thumping, with a bigger guy as opposed to, somebody else. I wouldn't take the belt off of Seth yet. I would have him win and pin Bobby Lashley in some sort of way. But Theory, to me, is the most important thing here. He's got to be strong, because, and I'm one of the people that was for ripping everything that Vince McMahon gave him off of him, including that briefcase, including the stupid smile, the selfies, all that stuff, and to be humiliated, to be humbled, to come back again. To me, he had no credibility before. I know there's some people that love him. Don't be in love with what what he should be. Look at what the character he was playing and where he was going. He was going nowhere. He was a schmuck, and it was shocking. I mean, that was one of the shocking things about the end of McMahon. It was like, I mean, some of the creative was the shit. Was terrible. Part was terrible. The egg and all that sort of stuff. It was ridiculous. So I like this, but now that he's here, if he ain't gonna win, he can't get pinned. So either he pins Lashley, screws, Seth Rollins hits the curb stomp, because they got, and the thing is, too, they better determine what Seth Rollins is, because I would like a Seth Rollins Austin Theory feud if Seth Rollins is the babyface, but like, they have to be willing to do that. So him curb stomping Bobby Lashley And then, and we've seen it a zillion times, but it always works timing wise, and the crowd loves it if the timing is right and it looks good. Austin Theory does something, ends up scooping up Bobby, and then hits him with the A-Town down, gets the win. I think that's their thing there. So he's still a slimy heel. He outslimed Seth, and Seth can be a baby face because, again, Becky's coming back. To me, they are baby faces. I don't know if Seth wants to, and they seem to this past week, take, again, he called out Cody, and he was extra heelish. So it's like, I don't know where they're at with him, but I would rather him be a full baby face. He goes with Austin Theory, which is only going to make Austin Theory better. The matches are going to be good. We're pretty sure we know that's going to be the case one-on-one. But now with this, what are you going to do with Bobby? Do you do Bobby and Brock at Royal Rumble just because if Brock's going to be there? Do you do that because you did it in Saudi Arabia? You have every use. Now we're going to do it here in America. I don't know what direction they're going to go.
Yeah, you're right. AJ Styles, Finn Balor. Finn Balor have the Judgment Day. Beside him, AJ Styles will have the OC. The Battle of the Bullet Club leaders. This is going to be that match that this is going to be the match that we have been, I guess waiting for a while. I mean, can you imagine this not being a banger?
No. No, unless
No.
somebody blows something out,
Right.
or unless it's too much ha-ha and gaga from outside the ring. But even then, I mean, there's a lot of pros there. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson have been around a long time. I mean, if it's just going to be carnage on the outside while there's carnage on the inside, like everybody that's involved with this, I fully believe in. Obviously, Dominic Mysterio's the the one of the bunch, but it's like, hey, you just follow along. I mean, he as a heel has gotten very comfortable in being the little slimy bastard that he is. So this match should kick ass. I really wanted this to be, and I really thought this was going to be a Survivor Series match, and I thought this could be the first time in WWE history, because of Rhea Ripley and how she is, and you bring in Mia Yim, it's like, I'm not saying you have to do full intergender at all. I'm not saying that, but like this would have been the best match to do the spots in, to have a unique Survivor Series thing where it may have come down to, again, there's ways you could have played this and have the advantage with one of the women at an advantage or disadvantage. I wish this would have ended up being a Survivor Series match, but I think it kicks ass. It'll be, I don't know who gets the victory. I'll go ahead and say AJ Styles, but I can also see all of these folks continuing to feud into the new year for sure.
Oh, easily. Oh, yeah, absolutely. By the way, what do you make of the news about Carl Anderson taking care of his New Japan commitments? He and Doc Gallows heading over there on December 14th for Machine Gun to defend the never openweight title.
Thank God his booking agent Doc Gallows was able to clear everything up for him.
It's crazy how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd heard rumors and I sent a text out to him. I didn't hear anything back. I had heard he wanted to go buy a fresh case of Asahi Super Dry on the 14th in Sendai, but it only makes sense. There's no reason for WWE to not let him go over and do that, especially because even if you had a concern about it, Hikuleo is the son of Haku. He's the son of Meng. So if you, God forbid, needed some excuse as to why, well, damn it, he lost to Haku. He lost to Meng's son. Like there's a way you could play that, but they don't even have to do that. There's nobody in the WWE universe. They don't care if Carl Anderson goes over and loses to Hikuleo. You know what I'm saying? So like, I wish this would have been already done and out of the way, but unfortunately it wasn't. But he goes over there, he loses. Let's get this thing out the way. We're done with it, and let's go ahead and move on, So I'm glad it's happening, though, and I'm glad they're getting it out of the way before the Tokyo Dome, and that belt can go on Hikuleo. And again, I don't know if he's the right guy for it either. Surprised it was going to be him, but you know what? Again, it's like a lot of the guys over there too. I mean, you're seeing it with Shota Umino. We're seeing it with, there are young guys that are just, it's their time now, and it's time to see if they can sink or swim.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And then you got Ronda Rousey defending the SmackDown Women's title against Shotzi. This feels like, those times they put Brock, when Brock Lesnar was world champion, and they'd put him up against, Tozawa or somebody. It's kind of like, okay, you're taking all the intrigue out of this, right? I like Shotzi too.
I like Shotzi too, and personally, I like Shotzi, but it's one of those things. Nobody believes she can beat Ronda. The story has not been any good. I mean, it's just been meh, and it's like she backs in and gets the. It is what it is, and it just screams to me. This match is on this show, whereas with Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose, it's like that match shouldn't have been. I understand why it was, but it probably just should have been on TV and been taken care of that way. Whereas in this case, I think I know why this is on the show and not on TV, or on the pre-show, and that is because there's got to be another shoe dropping. There has to be, because at this point, what are you doing with Ronda? After this, what do you do? Unless Damage Control attacks her or something like that. We've seen her against Shayna. We've seen her with Shayna. We've seen her against Natty. We've seen her with Natty. Those are her best people, her best opponents, her best partners, other than a Bayley, a Becky, or a Charlotte, or a Bianca. It ain't gonna be Bianca. So it's like, again, you got to do something. If the plan is going to be Becky and Ronda at WrestleMania, well, we still got a long way to go before we get there. We're going to have to fill time, and I can't see the cycle going through with Charlotte missing Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, so she's got to be coming back. So now would probably be the time, and then by the time you sweep through that, then you might want to take Io, who would be perfect, and Asuka, who would be perfect, and Bayley and Dakota, and go, okay, now they're on SmackDown. They're going after Ronda, freshen things up, make it. That's what I would do. But again, we'll see what they do. But Charlotte's been out so long now. It's crazy, and it's like, again, something's got to give. They've made the Raw Women's division. I like with Damage Control coming in. They put a focus. Unfortunately, Becky got hurt, but they put a focus on Bianca. Rhea is tied up in this, but she's strong again, whereas she wasn't before. Now she's strong again. So it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I could see maybe they try to prop up Raquel Rodriguez. She's got that build,
but you know what? Right now she's a baby face, and to me, she's not good enough yet. She's got so much potential. I think there's a lot you're going to be able to do with her, but it's like you're going to put her in there with Ronda to burn time.
Yeah.
I don't think people care, and I don't think it's going to hurt. I don't think that, to me, that may end up hurting Raquel more than helping Ronda, unless they really are able to come on with a story where it's like Raquel's strength is just too much, and there's some way you can try to play it.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is WWE Survivor Series War Games. This Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on Peacock.
They're building a dome of steel in Atlanta.
Oh, he is Mike Sempervive. Catch it on the Big Audio Nightmare on the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast for wrestling news, and weekdays on Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez, and follow him on Twitter at Sempervive.
Hey, and if you have a Hive, I'm on there now too, at Sempervive on there as well too. I got me a Hive.
So you got you a Hive. All right, there you go, man. I always love talking to you, man. It's always a lot of fun. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, you and your family. Feast it, lots of football, and we'll talk again soon.
You bet, my man. And like I always do, I'll be listening to you on the Cowboys broadcast before they end up cutting that off, and then they say I can't listen regionally anymore. But I got ways to get around that too.
There you go. Thanks, Mike.
About that, though. See you soon. Thank you, sir.